Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where it's about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of In the Dark. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So immediately, we're picking up after the last episode. You have Felix asking questions about how could someone just get taken out of the hospital. It's like, well, the cops are showing up, so you can ask him. And he's like, cool. Goes back and explains things to Murphy, and it's like, well, what do we do? Like, and for Felix, it's like, whoever took her, most likely Josiah, isn't going to take her. There was so much blood, he just assumed, like, but I think it's like, right, she was hooked up to a whole bunch of IVs and stuff like that, so it was most likely blood from, like, potentially fighting back and struggling, because it's like, those IVs were probably just, like, ripped out of her. They weren't probably delicately pulled. It's like, she probably was putting up a fight, so that's probably where a lot of that blood came from, just, like, her wounds and everything. I chalked that up to that, but maybe not. But Felix just assumed, like, right, it was kind of a bloody mess in there, so them taking, he probably thought, like, maybe they hurt her in some shape or form to make her bleed like that. Maybe, but I was, like I said, I just assumed it's from, like, IVs and stuff just being yanked out and stuff. I believe that's where a lot of that blood came from, but he's under the assumption, like, Jess is kind of going because, like, if whoever took her, which is Josiah, like, there's no way they hold on to her, like, what reason would they have to? So I'm also skipping over the real intro to this episode, and we find out Don Mateo, the person who Josiah burned all of his drugs. I was like, ooh. So I guess we're dealing with, like, the Mexican cartel here. So I was like, ooh, that's nasty. Not people you want to be on the bad side of. It's like, oh, Josiah, Nia, they're one thing. This is the full-blown cartel we're potentially talking about. So we'll see how that turns out as they, like, obviously they're hunting him down. Because it's like, oh, he has the nerve to believe he can burn my heroin and then disappear. It's like, yeah, I think he does. It's like, well, prove him wrong and basically find him for me. So, but Felix is like, right, we need somewhere to go. Because he's thinking we should go to Canada. But Murphy's like, I just need somewhere to sleep. I haven't been asleep in so long. He's like, fine, we'll go to my sister's house. The moment they went there and it took her a while to answer the door, I was like, it better not be. I was like, it better not be Max. Lo and behold, who opens the door? Max. I was immediately like, oh, you stupid bastard. All that about, oh, I'm going to go back to, like, Canada and stuff like that. And later on, he's like, oh, I left my wallet. I was like, shut up. Shut up with your excuses. Like, oh my God, you wanted to immediately, like, maybe he legitimately forgot his wallet. I don't believe him, even if he's telling the truth. I was like, oh, that doesn't mean you have to go back and, oh God, why'd you do that, Max? It just, for one, it's terrible time. He's like, she's like, it's okay. He's like, why are you back here? It's like, Jess was taken. And it's like, oh, he's like, Murphy, I'm sorry. She's like, yeah, I'm fine. I don't care. Like, it is kind of sucky for you to be like, oh, a little apologetic. It's like, oh yeah, while you were here banging it out with Leslie, oh, Jess is going missing. And that's why we're still here. What about you? Weren't you supposed to be going back to Canada? You're making a whole point to get away from Murphy and stuff like that. But I can squeeze in a little time to come back and me and Leslie can do our thing, which she kind of like isn't too concerned about because he's like, hey, maybe we shouldn't say anything. She's like, dude, I'm pretty sure they both know, and it just neither one's in a position. No one cares enough to really bring it up because it's like everything that's going on. And obviously for Murphy, she's laying in the bed and just thinking about Jess, like laying next to her and just for her to disappear. So she wanted Max to hold her just to make it feel like I just needed someone to hold her in that moment. She's like, because before she believed that Jess was okay and alive, at the very least she held on to that. Now it's like, nope, Jess might be dead, so that sucks. But then she gets a call and there's like huffing on the other side of it. It's like, Jess. It's like, okay, she was alive. Like, I heard her breathing on the other side of the phone. So it's like, okay, so at first I was like, why would she be like not saying anything? I was like, not unless she couldn't say anything. Because I was about to say, not unless it's a thing of like Josiah's nearby. Like, I figured it wasn't Josiah the way like his story was set up, where it's like he's trying to get him and his wife to run. I'm like, why would he take that time to get Jess? Because despite everything, he doesn't have time to worry about it. Because I figured as much that Josiah wasn't the one that had her. I figured, like, I couldn't see him running with Jess because it's like, why? He's too busy trying to get away with his wife, and like he doesn't have time to like deal with loose ends like that. It doesn't matter anyway. They're on the run. Plus he burned all his heroin, so the cops got nothing to tie to him anyway. Plus he knew from the beginning, like, oh, the moment I did that, I'm a dead man. So he knew Mateo would be coming after him anyway. So. But calling his wife out of nowhere to be like, yo, we gotta leave. There's some people behind me trying to kill me. She's like, why would they? It's like, oh, so this is one of those situations where this ain't well, I was about to say, it's not an Ozark situation, but it's like, well, Ozark well, it was like that, and then it quickly turned into the wife knowing thing. It's even, I guess it starts, it's kind of like a Breaking Bad, but eventually that turned into a knowing and kind of participating as well. But it's just, she had no idea and she wasn't participating in it, so. But, with all that going on, they've got to figure out, like, okay, so how do we find Josiah? Well, Trey has an idea of where he is, so it's like, okay, we need to go to Josiah's place, just roll up on it, interestingly enough. But what was it, Felix has been up for a while, so he took some of his sister's like anxiety pills or something like that, and it was like, yeah, she's like, yeah, you basically just did a whole bunch of cocaine by taking those pills because the dosage is, he's like, oh, whatever. And she's like getting all up in his grill because she's like, do you even think about the fact you're putting my life in danger? He's like, really? Oh, you just somehow turned the situation and made it about you, which I was also like, you know, Max is kind of wanted in all of this too, yet you still let him back in your house. And like, it seemed a little hypocritical. I mean, this is your brother after all, but it's like, I guess because they had their strained relationship, and it's like, wait, you killed a drug dealer, and the cops coming after you is one thing, but like, wait, there's another drug dealer who wants you dead. And it's like, oh, you're putting me in even more danger. It's like, you seem like down with helping beforehand, but now it's like, okay. But even then, like later on, Felix calls her out because he's like, oh, you wanted to help us out and everything because you were using it as an excuse to sleep with Max. But now that he rejected you, and she's like, he didn't reject me. It's like, Max is in love with Murphy. Murphy's in love with Max. There's nothing either one of us can do about it. She's like, either one of us. He's like, no, I didn't mean, shut up. And it's like, yeah, like the fact is, he's sprung on Murphy, like, but he also recognizes, like, right, she has eyes for no one but Max. And I think after that train situation, when Darnell convinced him to try and, you know, but it's like, nah, I think he's, you know, not pulling the trigger on that anymore, and just kind of like, it was what it was. Like, I think for him, he probably chalks it up to being, it was a fleeting moment. So I don't know if there still will be anything from that, just because there will never be a replacement for Max. Which even Trey's apologized. He was like, yeah, I thought you were playing me. She's like, I wasn't playing you. And I wish he had been like, yeah, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have listened to Max. And she'd be like, what? She'd be like, wait, what are you talking about? I was like, well, he said, oh, this and that, and because obviously Trey is the reason why Jess is in this situation. It's like, if you hadn't tried to steal those drugs, like, Josiah would have never burned down that arcade. We wouldn't even been in these circumstances in the first place. But if she had found out, like, Max had ran his mouth and kind of, like, got that in Trey's head and made him decide to do what he did. I mean, she already blames Trey, and I think, like, there wouldn't be any room to really throw it at Max. But I think it'd be interesting if she knew, like, Trey's actions were dictated by, like, the factors of what Max running his mouth off about you and everything. But I love it's like, right, they took Leslie's gun, in particular, it was Felix that took it and gave it to them, and it's like, nah, you're staying here because you're a little too, like, high and all over the place. So they go to see Josiah. No one's home except his daughter answers the door. They go in asking questions. His wife, like, I mean, truth be told, if this were any other circumstances, her doing what she did was the right move, because it's like, okay, well, I mean, even now wasn't the right circumstances, because they're not bad people. They're just quote-unquote good people doing bad things. I mean, well, Trey's a bad guy. Max, money launderer. I mean, they've all done bad things, but I think that's supposed to be the distinction of, we're not bad people, we're just good people doing bad things type of thing. Kind of almost like on some Good Girls type of stuff. But, I mean, it's like I said, under its normal circumstances, it makes sense. Like, there was a message on your phone with the address and everything, so you knew some bad people were coming, and you didn't know what the situation was, but still. And, obviously, they had to break the news. Like, Max is taking the kids upstairs, which I thought was kind of weird. I was like, him trying to, like, make them laugh. I'm like, they're not going to laugh under these weird circumstances. But it's like, no, they're kids. They don't understand what's going on. Him trying to do his, because it's an awkward situation to be in, babysitting while, like, they're questioning her. And it's like, he's probably not asking questions about, like, how they're going to get answers out of her. But, you know, Trey and Murphy confirm, like right, your husband's, he's the biggest drug dealer in Chicago, and it's like, her entire world's flipped upside. It's like, oh, did your kids ever go to the arcade? Now, why wouldn't he let your kids go to the arcade? Did he even say, like, oh, you shouldn't even come to town? But it's like, oh, are you struggling with money? No. It's like, yes, ignorance is bliss. It's like, she knew something was up, but it's like, rather than rocking the boat, she'd rather not know. Like, she probably had her suspicions in some regard, but you do turn out, like, you kind of, like, you have your questions, but then you're like, nah, it's okay, everything's fine, like, I'm not going to ask too many questions. But it's like, yeah, your husband's a murderer. She's like, my husband's not, you monsters. It's like, monsters? Your husband's the monster. She's like, my husband's not a murderer. And Trey's like, I've literally seen him kill at least 10 people in front of me. It's like, yeah. Your husband's a pretty big crime boss. And it's like, and she even it's like, whoa, you're not going to stab. It's like, oh, she pulled out a knife. It's like, yeah, not even one of, like, even a small one, not even one of the big ones. And like, Trey just snatches the knife from her. He's like, all right, we're going to handle this way. I'm like, how's this going to play out? I was like, is he actually going to torture her? And he just taped her to the chair. And it's like, oh, she's so difficult. She's so insufferable to deal with. Like, okay, torture her. He's like, that's what I'm doing. She's like, what, just by taping her to the chair? It's like, what do you want me to do? Waterboard her? And then Murphy's like, I don't know, do something else. And then accidentally slaps her, knocks her back. And it's like, oh. Murphy's like, oh, is she okay? And it's just, once again, that goofiness of them being like, oh, Trey being like, ooh, let me help you. Okay, 3, 2, 1, okay, there you go. And I'm like, you guys are just bumbling idiots a little bit to this situation. Obviously, but then Josiah shows up and I'm like, oh, this just went serious. And then it gets even more serious when you hear a gunshot. And I was like, because first I was like, oh, did Trey pull out the gun and pop Josiah? I was like, but they don't need him dead, they need information. But nope, it was actually his wife. It's like the cartel dudes showed up. I'm like, oh god, that sucks. That's horrible, dude. And as Trey and like Murphy are trying to sneak out because they want Josiah's kids, because it's like, right, you stole from Mateo's going to steal from you. But luckily, Max got the kids out of there in time. He did, really quickly too, like, he did open up a little bit where I don't think he's touched on it too much, and maybe he hasn't, I'm just not remembering, about his mom. He's like, yeah, my mom used to send me up to my room, and it's like, why, were you bad? He was like, no, sometimes she just wanted to be alone, and she just told me. Like, I think that was kind of a thing of, like, maybe it's a thing. What it seemed like he was kind of implying, like, hey, I want you to go up to your room because I'm tired of looking at you. Like, you kind of ruined my life. I didn't want to be a mom, and now I'm stuck with you. Like, maybe Max's dad, like split or whatever the situation was, and he was just a constant reminder of it. Whatever the case may be, it just seemed like she just didn't want to deal with him, and maybe she was just going through some stuff, you know, maybe just depression or whatever. But for him, and he even said that moment of like, kind of like this, and Josiah's daughter was like, wait, what? He's like, nothing, it's not important. It was like, because I was almost thinking, and he kind of talks about this a little bit later on, but I was like, were you almost comparing Murphy with your mom? And it's like, yeah, he was, because basically it's like, women, he's always sought out chaotic women like Murphy, and you know, when he was up the stairs with those little kids, it might reminded of him of his mom. So I guess he's saying like his mom was like chaotic like that too. It's just like, you know, kind of weird, but it's just like, not weird, but it's like psychologically that's interesting to know. Like, that's even more reason why his relationship with Murphy is complicated, because it's like being told to just stay in that room or whatever just made him feel like it made him, I guess, feel like that little kid again, being told by his mom to stay in the room just because like she kind of is doing whatever she wants. Who cares about what you want? Like, you kind of have no say in the situation. So I get the parallels. It was an interesting development to know, but for him to realize like, oh yeah, that's kind of where my taste in women come from. Like, I always somehow find my way to chaotic women, on some level. So I thought that was like a fascinating aspect to it. But like I said, at the end of the day, Max did save the kids. Josiah, wanting to save his kids, popped everyone. One of the guys is still alive, and notice what gun was in his hand. I was like, ooh, this is about to get bad, because that's going to be traced back to Leslie. Because at first I was like, oh god, the police are going to show up at the crime scene and everything. It's going to be bad because that dude's holding Leslie's gun. But his finger's twitching, so it's like, oh, he's still alive, so he's probably going to like survive and then go somewhere, cause more havoc with that. He's going to do something terrible with that gun, and then it's going to trail to Leslie, and it's like, wait, you're Felix's sister. That's going to be a whole thing, because it makes you wonder, like, maybe she has a different last name now or something like that. Like, why, or maybe because like, for her not to know about everything going on with Felix like before now, I wonder, like I said, she might, maybe where she lives, she never, like, I don't know, like, how do you avoid something like that? Because part of me was wondering first, like, I kept being a little suspicious. I was like, is she actually, like hiding something? That's what I was wondering. I was wondering if Leslie was hiding something, whether she had, like, some shadiness that she was up to or something. Something just seemed off about her this episode to me. I was like, she seemed super suspicious, but nevertheless, there's the whole angle of all of that kind of going on. Luckily, Josiah, you know, they were able to take his kids to Josiah, but Josiah was like, I thought Jess was still, she died in that fire. If she wasn't dead, I have no idea where she is. Makes you wonder what's Jess going to do. No, not Jess, but Alex. It's like, right, you went through all that trouble to warn Josiah and everything to be in the good graces, but it's like, yeah, that whole operation's going sideways. Not less Trey still tries to pick it up, but it's like hard to do that when there's the heroine's going. So I'm like, what are they all going to do? Because that entire organization's crumbled because like your head honcho's like running for the hills because the cartel's after him. But the sad thing is, with their resources and reach, not too many places you can probably hide and disappear. You know, shame he wasn't able to take his wife, hell, his kids. It's like the argument, it's not even just an argument. Murphy and them are responsible that her blood is on their hands because it's like, right, if they didn't like hold her up, like, but to be fair, it's like, well, it's just a misunderstanding because they thought like he had Jess, but sadly he didn't. And it's because of that decision, like, they ended up suffering the consequences. His wife is dead. His kids almost got killed because of him. It's like, granted, you saved my kids, so we're all kind of copacetic. To be fair, I did try to kill Jess, so I'm not saying he's saying that's fair, but like in a cosmic karma of it all, I think you can make some like, there's some equivalency there. I'm not saying it's all right, it's fair. I'm just saying like in a universal way, you can make it say, that was karma kind of coming back to bite him in the ass. I mean, to be fair, he started the circumstances, but it's like I said, it's just been one domino leading to another, leading to another, leading to another. So it's like, truth be told, is if you wanted to blame anyone, it could all fall back on Dean. He's the one that saw all this motion. And so you can make argument about Murphy, but I think like Dean's the real culprit behind everything. He set so much of everything in motion. So, which, speaking of the Dean situation, there is the circumstance of, it turns out Keith, the chief, got blasted, obviously, online, and basically he's being given retirement, which I'm like, oh, that's, but I guess it's like, it's a save face for the department and stuff like that, make it, we'll even write up a statement for you, and he even calls up his wife kind of glowing, it's like, yeah, she gave me retirement, like, yeah, it's almost like, I was worried, but no, we're good, babe, like, yeah, I'm retiring, but I think it's going to be like, I'm going to get a pension and everything. It's like, what? That didn't sit well with Gene the moment he got called in. It's like, oh, like, you want to be the chief? And he's like, I get it. I'm black. I'm the person. It's like, because if it ain't the optics of it, because you're trying to make the department look a little bit better, but it's like, I'm super unqualified for this job. And it's like, all right, you want to offer me this job? Then arrest Keith. And it's like, he's already on, like, he's already suspended, he's already gotten lost, he's forced for a time. It's like, no, he needs to suffer more for everything that he did. He needs to go to jail. And he's like, he's even saying like, hey, if you make me chief, that's going to be the first thing I do. And she's like, all right, it's your department, do whatever you want to. It's like, kind of, I scrub my hands clean of it as much as possible. So whatever ramifications he suffers is on him. And it's like, then, like, I thought it was super sweet and cute that Gene's bringing Sarah back on board. It's like, right, you're the one that kind of helped everything along. So, and I love the whole thing. It's like, oh, yeah, here's your badge back. He's like, actually, that's mine. Yours hasn't really come in yet, so I'm going to need that back. And she's like, almost like, oh. And he's like, no, I'm just messing with that's yours. I was almost hoping that he was serious. That is like, no, but seriously, I did give that to you just for like, it was just meant to be a sentimental, metaphorical thing. It's not literally your badge. It's actually mine. I think it would have been even funnier if it actually was true, not just him messing with it. But I love the bit. It's a strong bit. I love that she's like, yeah, I'm just going to quit. I'll call him tomorrow. Like, no big deal that I quit. Nah. But they end up arresting Keith. And he's kind of almost like, wait, you're really going to do this? I was like, yeah, we're going to do this in front of everybody too, so you're going down. But it's not the victory, 100% the victory Gene wanted, because it's like he got everything he wanted, but sadly Josh didn't. So it's like, right, let's go arrest Murphy Mason to kind of make up for it and don't let her get away this time. So they're putting forward a task force to do it. At the same time, like, Jess's identity gets flagged somewhere else. So it's like, okay, so what's going on here? While they were all like dealing with the fact is that Josiah didn't have Jess, Felix ends up getting a call, and well, he ends up calling a motel because apparently Jennifer Walters ended up staying there, and they're like, whoa, we're looking all over for her. Even I was like, that doesn't make any sense, because I figured, I was like, either Jess ran on her own or someone did snatch her, but I was like, it doesn't make any sense. I don't understand what's going on here. And so, like, why was she hide and not let the others know that she was okay? Like, I didn't understand that. Like, I figured she was running for something, but I just wasn't sure what was going on. Like, because like I said, last episode, I wasn't sure if she actually was running or whether she actually did get snatched. So, but whatever the case may be, Felix goes to the the motel, and it's like, oh, it's not actually her that's opening the door. It's actually someone else. It's like, wait, what? Before Felix could even really answer, police grab her, and when Jean's questioning her, she doesn't say anything. But the question is like, well, how did she get Jess's identity? And it's like, and in that moment, Felix is like, yes, Cindy has to be recycling our identities, which is like, even Max is like, I didn't sign up for that. Because I'm like, that seems like a terrible business model. Like, I mean, I get it on some level because it's like, right, these are identities can do some good, like but it's like it's shady business. I mean, to be fair, it's a shady business to begin with, but it's like recycling identities, like using other people's identities that they turn in, using them to give to other clients. But it's like, right, how many people are ever going to find out? They won't, because it's like, oh, like you need an identity, I got one for you, here's a perfectly good identity. Yeah, there's some stuff associated with it, but as long maybe it's set up for people who are like not, as long as you're not in the same area as those identities are associated, you'll be fine. Like, oh, all those identities are associated with Chicago, as long as you're out of Chicago, you'll be okay. So maybe that's the justification for it. But it's so interesting because with that thought process, that means like what's going on. That means there's someone else using Murphy, Max's, or even Felix's identity at this time. So it's like, okay. But then like Murphy start piecing it together. She's like, whoa. But right, if the cops came after her because even Felix was like, it couldn't just be her name. Like it has to be the full blown identity for them to have to come after thinking it was Jess. So it's like, wait, but if that's happening, like what if this is because the cops actually thought it was Jennifer, right? That Jennifer was Jess. So what if the opposite is true? What if they think Jess is Jennifer because someone was using something like Jess's identity was, well, no, because it was like, what if someone's after the real Jennifer Walters and now they're after Jess because they're mistaking her for him? I was like, dude, that's such a bloody good twist. I don't know why I had to say bloody good, but that's a really good twist of like, I didn't expect this to have even deeper layers. Cause once again, I'm sure like what that whole like black and white scene sequence was going to turn out to be, and to find out that it's even deeper than what we thought it was, dude, that's so crazy. Because it's like, because that girl, you know, at the locked up, it's like, yeah, she's not answering any questions, she's running from somebody or something, and it's like, what's so terrifying that she's like scared to admit like who she is? Maybe it's because she did something bad that's associated with all of that, and she doesn't want to like, you know, admit her own guilt. Or maybe she's so terrified of this person that she's like, if I say anything about them, I'm going to get God. So now we get more context for that person getting attacked in that black and white scene. It's not Jess. Like maybe it's another, like maybe there are other people that ended like who have Jennifer Walters' identity. Maybe that's what that comes from, because whoever that because I might be warping this a little bit in my head. Like, she's not just giving it to one person, is she? She actually giving these identities to multiple people. Is that what that's kind of implying? Or is it like, no, like only one person has like these other identities? But it's like, regardless, it's like someone looking for the real Jennifer Walters is like after Jess. Am I even saying the last name? I'm saying Walters, because in my head I would still want to just keep, every time I'm thinking like Jessica Walters, that's what like kind of keeps going in my head. So I'm trying to remember, is that the identity, is that it's Jennifer Walters is like the last, like I said, I'm just fudging it in my head, because I never bothered like really learning their fake names because I didn't think it was important. I was like, oh, but it's like super plot relevant and important. I mean, it's proven to be important in many cases, but it's like fascinating development. Oh yeah, plus there's the whole Max and Leslie thing, so they are getting more serious and stuff like that. So, but to be fair, Murphy doesn't have time to worry about that. It doesn't matter. What matters is saving Jess, because someone's out there is after her because they think she's someone else. So they've found themselves mixed up in something even larger while also still being hunted by the cops. There's still the cartel situation. That dude probably will remember Trey and Murphy's face, and with their faces plastered everywhere, in particular Murphy's. So maybe that'll give him a leg up on this whole thing, because he won't be able to get to Josiah, but at the very least he can get back at them, because I don't know. Once again, plus he's got Leslie's gun, so that's, like I said, not less that was supposed to be like his finger twitching because he was still dying, and that's just to focus on the gun even more. But it seemed like that was kind of implying like, no, he's still alive. Like I said, so much is happening. There's just so much, and I'm so curious to see where all of this ultimately ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. going to be wild as we continue down. We are essentially a little over the halfway mark for the season, so it's going to definitely be. It is interesting that this is episode 7, I believe. So like, it's like, yeah, this back half of the season takes on a whole new turn. I think it's kind of a real like interesting point to make that happen too. So like I said, it's going to be interesting to see kind of what this somewhat back half of the season looks like. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.